Hey, deep divers. You guys ready for this?
Ready for what?
To dive deep into this crazy election and all the emotions swirling around it, buckle up, because we're tackling John Oliver, the comedian. And,
Wait, John Oliver?
yeah, you'd think after all these years, he wouldn't get this riled up about an election.
Yeah, he's usually pretty chill, sarcastic, but chill.
Exactly. But the piece we're looking at today, oh man, he's practically in tears, pleading with viewers about the importance of this election.
Wow. Okay, that's not the John Oliver I'm used to. Sounds like things are getting serious.
Right, and to make things even wilder, he actually reveals who he voted for last time around, which, I mean, you never see that from a comedian.
No, not really. So what's got him so worked up? Is he just playing it up for the cameras or what?
Well, that's what we're going to find out.
Yeah.
The piece lays out some of his key arguments, and let me tell you, they're pretty heavy. He talks about expanding Medicare, protecting reproductive rights, and this thing called Project 2025.
Project 2025. What's that?
Basically, it's this conservative plan to drastically reshape the government if a Republican wins the presidency.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense why he'd be worried.
Yeah, and then there's the Supreme Court. Lifetime appointments, shifting the balance of power, the drill.
Right. Huge implications. So he's concerned about the long-term impact of all this.
Exactly. He even says something like, Trump digging us into a new layer of hell if he gets a second term. I mean, that's pretty intense for a comedy segment.
Yeah, not exactly lighthearted stuff.
And speaking of heavy topics, he also tackles Biden's Gaza policy, which he straight up calls indefensible. He acknowledges the anger a lot of folks feel, especially those who voted for Biden last time.
Yeah, it's important to address that. He's not shying away from the flaws of the current administration.
Not at all. And then he introduces this incredible story about a Georgia state representative, Ruwa Roman.
Okay, I've heard of her. She's Palestinian-American, right?
Yeah, and she embodies this internal conflict that so many people are feeling. Furious with Biden over Gaza, but terrified of what a second Trump term could bring.
Soft.
Tough spot, right?
Definitely a rock and hard place scenario.
So her solution, she voted for Harris, but also cast a protest vote elsewhere on the ballot. It's like she's saying, okay, I'm picking the lesser of two evils, but I'm still making my voice heard.
Interesting strategy. We're seeing more and more of that reflecting the complexity of this election. People are trying to make their voices heard in a system that doesn't always feel representative.
Right. But getting back to Oliver, I mean, he really hammers home the potential consequences of a second Trump term. It's stark.
What does he say specifically?
He paints this picture of a bleak future under Trump versus a, more hopeful, even humorous future if Harris wins.
He's basically saying if Harris wins, we can all breathe a sigh of relief and laugh about this crazy ride.
Exactly. And here's the kicker. He admits he didn't want to vote for Biden, calls politics transactional, meaning our choices rarely perfectly align with our values.
That's a good point. How often do we really get to vote for someone who embodies all our ideals? It's something to think about.
Right. It's a tough pill to swallow, but it's reality.
It is, and it's a struggle we all face when we head to the polls.
Absolutely. But hey, that's what this deep dive is all about, right? Making sense of this crazy election and figuring out what it all means for us.
Exactly. Helping people navigate this complex landscape and make informed choices.
Choices that, as Oliver points out, can have huge consequences.
And it all comes down to this. Can we separate our feelings about individual politicians from the potential consequences of their victory?
Whoa. Now that is a question to ponder. And it's one we're going to keep exploring as we dive deeper into John Oliver's message. So stay tuned, deep divers. This is just the beginning.
It's pretty amazing how Oliver manages to keep things funny, even when talking about such a serious topic. Like, you can tell he's stressed about this election, but he still finds ways to make it relatable and even, find a few laughs along the way.
Yeah, for sure. Like
Yeah.
that bit about wanting a world where we can just laugh at Trump wearing that bright orange safety vest without worrying about the country falling apart. It's such a funny image, but it also captures this deep desire for a simpler time.
Exactly. We all want to get back to a place where politics doesn't feel like this constant threat, right? Like, we just want to breathe a sigh of relief and maybe even chuckle at the absurdity of it all. And Oliver suggesting that a vote for Harris is a step in that direction.
Like, hey, remember laughter. Remember when things weren't so scary. Let's try to get back to that.
Exactly. But it's not all jokes and lighthearted moments. He also gets real about the serious consequences of this election, the stuff that keeps you up at night.
Yeah, like what happens if Trump actually gets a second term?
Yeah.
He talks about the long-term impact of those Supreme Court appointments and how they could change everything. Climate policy, reproductive rights, the whole shebang.
And it's not just about Trump either. He brings up figures like Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who's gained some traction despite promoting, some pretty out there conspiracy theories, especially about vaccines. Oliver's highlighting how these fringe ideas could actually lead to public health crises if they gain enough influence.
Right. This election isn't just about political theories. It's about real-life consequences,
Oh, yeah.
people's health, their freedoms, their everyday lives.
Absolutely. And I think this ties back to the listener's own experience because Oliver's message ultimately boils down to the importance of engaging in the political process, even when it feels messy or frustrating.
Like he says, look, I get it. It's not ideal, but we can't just sit back and do nothing. We have to show up and make our voices heard.
Right. He's acknowledging his own reluctance to vote for Biden, but he argues it's a necessary step towards a better future. It's about compromise and choosing the lesser of two evils sometimes.
Which, let's be honest, is something a lot of us are grappling with right now. We're tired of all this political drama. We're exhausted from these difficult choices and the weight of the consequences.
I think that's why Oliver's message resonates so much. He's being vulnerable and honest about his own struggles, which makes it easier for us to connect with him.
It's like he's saying, hey, it's okay to feel conflicted. It's okay to be angry or disappointed, but don't let those feelings stop you from taking action.
Exactly. Our actions, our choices, can have a real impact on the future of this country, for better or for worse.
So what do we do? How do we navigate this crazy landscape?
Well, it brings us back to that question we posed earlier. Can we separate our feelings about individual politicians from the potential consequences of their victories?
It's a question that keeps coming up again and again, and it's one that we'll need to keep asking ourselves as we head into these final hours before the election. And, this isn't just about one election, right? It's about something bigger.
It is. It's about recognizing our power, as citizens, to shape the future.
To make things better, even when it feels impossible.
Exactly. Even when the system feels, totally rigged against us.
It's about demanding better from our leaders, holding them accountable.
Because we deserve better. We deserve a future where healthcare is a right, not a privilege.
Where everyone has control over their own bodies and their own choices.
Where we actually protect the planet, for future generations.
Where everyone's voice is heard, especially those who have been silenced for too long.
That's the future John Oliver's fighting for. And honestly, it's a future worth fighting for.
So let's take all this frustration, this anger, this hope, and turn it into action. These next 48 hours are crucial.
We got to make them count. Vote like our lives depend on it.
Because they might.
They really might.
Deep divers, this is the end of our deep dive, but the conversation doesn't end here. Head to the comments and tell us what resonated with you, what questions are still on your mind.
And if this deep dive got you thinking, hit that like button and subscribe for more. Let's keep this going.
Every view, every comment, every like helps us reach more people. So thank you for being part of the deep dive community. We really appreciate it.
We do.
Now go out there and make your vote count.